Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that this overview of the narrative essay and the options available to you on this narrative essay prove helpful. If you weren't in class, I hope to see you next class period. And again, remember, if you have any questions, there will be opportunities to ask questions in class, or you can always shoot me an email. The narrative essay, there'll be several slides that go over the readings that we're doing from the Anthropocene Reviewed, and there will be other things, writers, the writing workshops and things like that, to help people get started and to help people polish the essay. But I think it's important to go over the options for the prompts and to just kind of explain what I have in mind as I'm going through here. Option one: Green asserts that he is really, really good at Googling strangers. This seems to me, in some ways, to be kind of a bit of a creepy skill to have. I'm not sure that Googling strangers is something that I would want to associate with myself, but Green can go with God and be happy. The next thing, though, because he has put in the work and he has the knack for it. In other words, he has some talent, he has the knack for it, but he has also put in the work. A lot of times people have talent, but they don't develop the talent because they haven't put in the work. He relates the event where he Googled a child who he had encountered when he was working as an intern chaplain at a children's hospital. And I think that that event crystallized for us why this is a skill he wants to talk about. So, your job is to write an essay that sh- shows you are really, really good at something because you have put in the work and you have the knack for it. You need to use a personal experience. This is a narrative essay. This is an essay that tells a story, and the story is about you. So relate that personal experience to illustrate how you use the skill or how you develop the skill. The or is capitalized, not both, one or the other. How do you use this skill, or how did you develop this skill? But again, the goal is you're going to show you're really, really good at something. You're going to show you have put in the work and you have the knack for it. That's number one. Number two, in academic decathlon, Green talks about this river. This river takes him back to memories of his high school career as an academic decathlon participant. And I think we as humans have this nature to make associations. And sometimes we associate natural objects with events that happened elsewhere. Something about the natural object prompts a memory, and we go from there. Okay. And so, whether it's a river, a mountain, the ocean, whether it's a cemetery, I'll take that as a natural plot of land, even though it's populated by tombstones, whatever it is, some sort of natural object, a cornfield, a hayfield, whatever it is. Think about a natural object, and it became linked with a memory that occurred at a different time at a different place. I apologize. I'm going to have to look up Hiroyuki's Doi's pronunciation of his name. I'll try to have it ready next time. But uh, in that essay, he discusses signing his name over 500,000 times. He concludes that on the other side of monotony lies a flow state, a way of being that is just being, a present tense that actually feels present. In other words, he is totally mindful of the event. He is totally in a Zen state, for lack of a better word. Your job here is to write an essay about a time you engage in this activity that may have been mundane, that may have been dull, that may have been boring, but somehow it produced this flow state that allowed you to feel totally and completely present in the moment. Think about that experience. Think about the feeling of being present. I believe that in this essay, the description of the flow state, the description of what it feels like to be totally and completely present, will be as important as the story of the activity itself. And then finally, option number 4, Green uses an experience with the sun and a brown oak leaf to observe that we are never far from wonders, and that wonders do not cease. He then asserts our attentiveness is in short supply, therefore, our ability and willingness to do the work that awe inspires is limited. I think that this is clearly my favorite option on here. You don't have to write on it, but it's my favorite option because I certainly believe that we are never far from wonders. But a lot of times we are far less attentive than we should be to appreciate the wonders. And the wonders can be simple: the brown leaf, the cat sleeping in the sunbeam, and the feeling of calm you get from just watching that. Whatever it is, think about this idea of when you had the willingness to do the work that awe inspires, and that you were compelled into an aesthetic contemplation you neither understood nor desired by a simple everyday object. It can be a natural object, it can be a man made object, it can be a drawing a little sibling or a niece and nephew gave you, whatever it is. You were compelled into an aesthetic contemplation. We'll talk about the definition of aesthetic in class. The simple everyday object made you think about things in a new world and produced this sense of awe, this sense of wonder. You had the attentiveness. You did the work that was necessary to be attentive. Remember that these are about you and that these should show some sense of change, some sense of growth, some sense of why is this experience important. All of the narrative essays need to explain how and why this narrative is important. Let's look at some of the basics. If you're in the Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, it's due October 12th at 11:59 p.m. If you're in the Tuesday, Thursday class, it's due the 13th. I'm going to take a second here and make that switch. Copying and pasting is not always the greatest idea in the world. It's due October 13th at 11:59 for the Tuesday, Thursday class. There's a grace period for daily writings. There's no grace period here. If it's late, the deductions start to happen. The summary response was 2 to 3. This one's 3 to 4. Fully on page 3, starting to get on page 4. Again, I showed people how to do this once before, but the idea that the paper should be double spaced, and when you're changing the spacing, please make sure to change the before and after spacing to 0. Again, as a quick reminder about how to do this, you get to the spacing, which is going to be this double arrow thing, line and paragraph spacing. You click on that. You can go down to custom spacing. When you get to custom spacing, you can change the line spacing to 2, and you change this before and after to 0. Please remember to use the Google Docs default font. I believe that's Arial, at least looking at my screen right now. I don't think I changed anything on this one. Your name, your class period, the response to the author's name, in this case, it should be narrative, um, you know, narrative option. So let me change that. It's one of the things to look for as we go through these things. I told you I'm doing these things in one narrative about. All right. Make sure that that's at the heading of the paper as we go through. Try this one more time here. Narrative about flow state, narrative about wonder, narrative about um, Googling, whatever it is. Okay. And then this should be in the upper left hand corner. Make sure everything is double spaced, those sorts of things. Make sure you have a title. Make sure that the title is in the default font. Make sure it's centered on the page. Remember that plagiarized work receives a 0. I'm going to use Turnitin and Google Classroom to detect any plagiarism. I will also have this rubric in front of me. And the rubric, I think, the thesis here is going to be less important. The thesis will be, I think, inherent in the story. But organization here will be super important. Do you have a clear beginning, middle, and end to the story? And does the story prove a point? And are there complex and varied sentence structures? Are there few errors within the sentences? 2 and 4 are going to be important here. On the summary response, I think 1 and 3 were perhaps more important. This one, 2 and 4 are going to be much more important as I look through the thesis. Again, a couple of quick reminders with some tips for this essay, and let me just try to get them all on one page again as I do a one take thing. Number 1, have a point for the description or the story. Why does this matter? Have some conflict. Stories have to have conflict. Otherwise, people don't read them. People don't care unless there's a bit of a struggle. Avoid the demonstrative pronouns this, these, and those. They're vague. Work to get rid of them. The paper begins from chronological order, follow it. And again, work to have some sentence variety. Work to have different types of sentences as you go. Have some compound sentences, have some complex sentences. A whole series of I did this, I did that, I did something else, then this happened, then that happened, is going to lull the reader into a state of boredom that will not produce the Zen flow that Green talked about in some of his other essays. We're going to talk about each of the articles in class a little bit as we go through these things. Again, I hope all of you has a good day. Each of you has a good day, excuse me. All of you have a good day. I hope this one take video proved helpful if you weren't in class, and I hope to see you in class next class period.